Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This week, I have a repeat guest on, Cara Bradley, and we are talking about menopause mindset. It's a really, really great episode, and I think you guys are really going to like it. Before we get into the show, though, I want to remind you to sign up for my newsletter. There is so much good stuff over there, so much wisdom, so much knowledge. So much rounding out of the information that I provide through my solo episodes and through my interview episodes. If you listened to last week's episode, it was on one of the 10 ethical guidelines of yoga, one of the yamas, ahimsa. And in this week's newsletter, we're talking about the second guideline, satya, which stands for truthfulness or reality, and how those two work together. And I really reveal in that newsletter how I've realized that in a certain area of my life, I was not practicing ahimsa or satya. So it's really great information and a little window into my world and what goes on behind the scenes for me, and how I am continuously trying to live these guidelines, and really reevaluating many areas of my life all the time to make sure I am staying in alignment with what I believe to be true and what I know will help me to live life with more ease, peace, purpose, connection, and joy. And I think that's what we all want. So please sign up. The link is in my show notes. When you sign up for the newsletter, that is where you'll also get all the information on any freebies that I have, which actually I'm planning a new one for this summer. So be on the lookout for that, as well as any workshops or masterclasses I'm hosting. All that information comes to there, and everything that I offer gets offered to my newsletter group first, and then it comes out for everyone else. So you'll be the first to know about everything. So sign up. You can use the link in my show notes, or you can go over to my website, katiefarinas.com, and click on the newsletter section and sign up there. Hey, gorgeous souls, and welcome to the Midlife Purpose Project. I'm your host, Katie Farinas, a yoga teacher and soul purpose coach. And just like you, I'm navigating the wild, beautiful, and sometimes messy terrain of midlife. This is the space where we unpack the shifts happening in our bodies, minds, and souls. We're diving deep into the questions that rise up when everything seems to be changing. Think of this as your toolkit for making sense of this powerful phase of life. We'll have honest conversations, belly laughs, maybe a few tears, and a whole lot of growth. We'll hear from experts on topics that matter to you in midlife, and I'll share yogic philosophy that has been helping humans live with more skill and ease for centuries. Because here's the truth. Everything you've been through, every challenge, every joy, every heartbreak, has been training you for this. You're not broken, you're not lost. You're stepping into your power. So come on in, embrace the mess, the beauty, and the absolute magic of midlife. Let's journey together. So this week I have with me Cara Bradley. Cara is a fellow yogini. She ran her own yoga studio for many years right outside of Philadelphia. She is also an author and a coach. And most importantly, she is a midlife woman. And on this episode, we're talking about menopause mindset. Cara, like many of us, went through a major transition starting in her mid 40s, and she shares her story. She shares her story of where thinking that she was in burnout and not realizing that she was actually in perimenopause and having so many symptoms and just kind of feeling like a fraud. She talks about how at one point in her life she had a hard time admitting some of the things that her body was going through because she felt like it shouldn't be happening. She felt like, she's a yoga teacher and she's always been very fit, taken very good care of her body. And yet she was experiencing so many challenging physical issues. But now looking back on it, she understands, what was happening to her. So she's now really, really passionate about sharing this information, getting this information out to as many people as possible. And she loves the idea and believes deeply in the idea of reinventing ourselves over and over. And that this phase of our lives is about using the wisdom and the knowledge and the experiences that we have gained and continue to gain to reinvent ourselves and create a new version, a new upgraded version of ourselves. And she believes so deeply in that for many reasons. But for one reason is she believes that when women really wake up and step into their power, that we can make big change in this world. And she really loves this one Chinese proverb that says, "When sleeping women wake, mountains move." And it's a guiding principle in Cara's life, as you'll hear in this conversation. And it's a guiding principle in her work. And it's a big part of the conversation that we have. So I hope you enjoy, and I will talk to you at the end of the show. All right, Cara, welcome back to the show. You were originally on when the show was Mom on the Verge, and here you are again when it is the Midlife Purpose Project. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Katie, and what a great topic.
I am so excited to have you. And we chatted a little bit before I hit record. But just to catch our audience up, I follow you. I follow you on social media. I get your daily sparks, which are little written inspirations that you send out every day. And I have seen your evolution from when we last spoke to where you are now. And I thought you would just be such a great guest for my audience because I can see you have undergone a midlife transformation. And that's really what this show is all about, helping women to navigate this midlife phase and see it as an opportunity for transformation and growth and really like the best time of your life. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom in this area.
Well, it has been definitely a long and winding road for sure. And, it's amazing how many iterations we get. I mean, it's really a
Yeah,
blessing that
yeah,
we get to continually pivot. And really, we can stand on all of our life's experience. I think that's what they call wisdom as we get older.
yeah.
We've got all this life experience, the highs, the lows, the failures, the losses, the incredible moments. And we get to make it up again and
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, it really is. And I am seeing that so much in my own personal life. How exciting it can be. It's not all roses and butterflies, right? We're not going to pretend that it is, but it's also really exciting because you do get to reiterate over and over with all this accumulated knowledge and wisdom and experience. And I feel like personally, it's like a deepening into life. Like it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's really beautiful. It's a beautiful experience.
Now, that's a well said. It does get deeper, it gets richer. We go
Yeah.
from like a light white wine, right? And as
Yes.
we get older, we
Yes.
become this rich burgundy.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And each time you think you've kind of hit a level that where you think I'm going to stay here for a bit, like I think I've reached my pinnacle or however you want to phrase it, then something else happens and another window opens to an opportunity to deepen again. And you and I were just discussing that why we classify midlife as like 40 to 65-ish. That's probably like technically what midlife is. I think it may even start at 35. But why? So what happens after that? Do we stop growing? Do we stop evolving and transforming? No, absolutely not. Why should we cap ourselves? There's no need to.
Absolutely. And like as you said before, I've been spending some time on Substack and I have all of these new friends that are writers, and these women are in their mid 70s, early 80s, and have so much incredible wisdom to
Mm,
share, and now have a platform and places that
yeah,
where they can share and we can learn.
Yeah.
and why stop, like you said, why stop at
Right.
60, 65? Like
Yeah.
let's keep going, girls.
Right. I mean, if we cap ourselves, then no one else is going to tell us to keep going, right? So, I mean, we are the ones who need to do it for ourselves and to say, I'm not done here. I have more to say. I have more to do. I have more to create. I have more to serve, and I am going to do it. I'm going to
Yeah.
be courageous and do it. So, but let's rewind a little bit because I would love for you to share with the audience kind of your midlife journey, like when you first recognized maybe things were starting to change for you and how that unfolded.
Yeah. Well, I think I was very typical of many women. So in my 40s, up until just recently, I ran a very busy yoga studio
Mhm.
outside of Philadelphia, and it was nonstop. I had my business, I was raising kids, I became a speaker and an author, and I just was going. I
Yeah.
was in life completely, and I didn't realize what was happening. I honestly thought that maybe I was experiencing some burnout. I had some weight gain, I had joint pain, I wasn't sleeping well. I mean, all the typical things that so many of us experience. And in
Mhm.
fact, I got some testing done and I was probably like 48. And the coach said, "Yeah, I think you have adrenal fatigue." So all of a
Mhm.
sudden, I've got this new diagnosis. I'm burned out, but never did I think it was perimenopause because
Yeah.
nobody talked about perimenopause even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, time went on. I went through menopause. I didn't even realize it. No talk of HRT, no talk of anything.
Mm.
I'm still running my business. I'm basically running myself into the ground. I mean,
Yeah.
I was running on fumes, which so
Yeah.
many women, this is what's happening. And
Yeah.
my body started to break down. So much
Mm.
so that, and this is always a little hard for me to even admit, I had two hip replacements at
Oh,
58 and
okay.
59. And
Okay.
here I am running a yoga studio. I'm
Yeah.
a health coach. I'm speaking about longevity. I mean, this is my world. And I'm in my 50s and I'm having hip replacements.
Yeah.
Like what's with that? Now,
Right.
there is a slight genetic component. My mom had her two hips done in her 50s, but I didn't realize that it was menopause related, or it
Yeah.
could have been because of the extra inflammation in my body, because
Hmm.
of the lower estrogen. All of this compounded with COVID just sent my body into a spiral. And
Yeah.
so I'm on the other side. I'm stronger than ever. I feel great.
Mm.
But it was like a hard pill to swallow, so to
Yeah.
speak. And I think
Right.
a lot of us women were hiding behind closed doors with our symptoms and
Hmm.
not willing to share. So, around that time when I started to really understand what was happening to my body, as I do with all the things in my life, I got certified.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I want,
I
I want
get
to
that.
know
I
more.
really deeply get that.
It's crazy. But I
Yeah.
got certified as a menopause coach and I went deep into
Yeah.
understanding about, what is happening. And of course, it's very timely because there's so much interest. Finally, our
Hmm.
generation of women is like, screw this. I am not
Yeah.
going to live like this for the rest of my life. I
Yeah.
want answers. So, in understanding now the mechanics of menopause and what we're dealing with as women, it's really given me the voice, the power, the passion, the enthusiasm to help as many women as I can not feel invisible, come
Yeah.
out of hiding and start sharing, just like we shared when we were pregnant. Everybody
Right.
shares when they're pregnant. Why aren't we
Absolutely.
sharing, our experience now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, going back to what you said, I thought I was just burnt out. I think that is very, very common among women because our bodies are changing, our nervous systems are changing, our brains are changing, like everything is changing, but we just know, well, I used to be able to handle all of this. I used to keep all these plates spinning in the air fairly effortlessly. And now plates are dropping left and right, and I'm trying to pick them up and keep them spinning. But in the process, I just feel exhausted, overwhelmed, impatient, irritable, maybe anxious and depressed. And then we start blaming ourselves. We start like saying, what's the matter with me? Like, why can't I keep doing this? Without really fully understanding that there are tremendous changes happening inside our bodies. And although it may mean that what we once did before, we can't do anymore, that's not a failure. That is a window of opportunity to say, but what am I meant to do in this phase of my life, right? How do I come alive and become my best self in this phase of my life? And there is no shame attached to the fact that what I could do in my 20s and 30s, I can't do, let's say, in my even mid 40s and beyond.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, that's well put. And I think that um, now with the information out, now that
Hmm.
women are talking about it, now we can lay it all on the table with each other to say,
Yeah.
did you experience this? Like, did you
Yes.
think you were depressed? Did you think you had anxiety disorder?
Yeah.
What did, and so this is why the new generation of women coming up into
Yeah.
perimenopause are going to be so much more well equipped. So,
Yeah.
in that regard, I feel like well, I want to definitely do my part. I have two daughters. They're
Hmm.
30 and 31.
Hmm.
I want to make sure that they are prepared.
Yeah.
And so that's why podcasts like this, it's so important for us to be talking about it. There was one thing I wanted to mention so a couple of things happened to me. Two books, actually. I read the book Next Level by
Hmm.
Celine Yeager and Dr. Stacy Sims. And blew the doors open for me on strength training, on, sleep, on everything that I needed to do to
Hmm.
not, and I love their words, not step down, but
Hmm.
step up,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
This is our time to step up.
Hmm.
Since then, Celine's become a friend. I've been on her pod. I've done a lot of
Oh,
work with
that's
in
cool.
her world.
Hmm.
But then there was a second book called The Upgrade by Dr. Louise Brezendine.
Hmm.
And she doesn't call it menopause. She calls it the upgrade because she talks
Hmm.
about all of these different hormonal fluctuations and then how our estrogen, progesterone, nosedive, flatline, all of
Yeah.
that. She talks about it from a confidence perspective, from an empathetic perspective, from
Yeah.
how women post menopause are now can be more confident than ever, can
Hmm.
now not give a crap
Yeah.
anymore about what other people say,
Yeah.
can speak their truth, can be in their
Yes.
power. And
Yes.
so this is what we need more of. We need more
Yes.
women talking about what's coming. Yes, ladies,
Yes.
it's going to suck for like 10
Yes.
years.
Yes.
So let's talk about it and get what we
Right.
need, the things we need to do to help us get through this time.
Yeah.
But we are going to come into this whoosh of power. And
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, from then on, then yes, like we talked about before, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like
Yeah.
no limit.
Right, right. Oh, I love that. I love that. And thank you for, saying the names of those books because that's great. Readers can go out there and take a look at those books and read them. And I think you're right. I think that saying this stuff, talking about this stuff so openly in front of our children. I mean, I tell my daughter all the time, all the things that are going on. All the physical things that are going on related to I'm in perimenopause and all the mental things that are going on. And part of it so she can understand what's happening with me if I'm a little irritable or more tired or, all the things that go along with it. But also, and she kind of rolls her eyes and she's like, Mom, she's 16. But also so that one day when she gets there, and I think the doors are blown open on the conversation. So it probably will be so different for by the time she gets there. But she will also have had me she will think back and be like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Mom talked to me about this. And now it's happening to me and it's okay. Like, look at what a beautiful life she created. Even though maybe she was struggling with some of these challenging things that are happening, during this time frame, it's not an ending. I mean, it's an ending maybe to an era, but it's not an ending. It is a beginning. Um, and so I think you're so right about having these open conversations. Um,
Yes.
So tell us, but did you personally go through a period of, I mean, you mentioned, oh my gosh, I had this hip replacement and then I was like, what am I doing? Because I'm a longevity coach, et cetera. Did you start questioning the meaning of life or what your purpose in life was? Did you go through a questioning period?
Oh my gosh. I think I go through a questioning period every day.
I know. I frequently say, what am I doing with my life?
I mean, that's the long and winding road. There's so
Yeah.
many different iterations of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, during the time of like the height of my menopause symptoms, we were in the thick of COVID, and for me, I feel like COVID lasted like 4 years.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
myself, for I had sold my yoga center, I had moved out of the Philadelphia area, I had stopped speaking because the speaking circuit went flat
Right.
for a while. So
Yeah.
yes, I had gone quiet but and asking questions every day.
Yeah.
Who am I meant to serve? What am I here to do? I know I have more in me, just like we said
Hmm.
right before we
Yeah.
went live. And so many women feel this way, like I'm
Yeah.
not done yet. My
Yeah.
God, I have so
Yeah.
much more in me, but what is it? And how can I do it in a way that supports me now? Like, I don't want to go back to how I was at 20, 30, 40. Like I want to be in my power now. And
Yeah.
so, I often say, and this is one of the things I write about every day, is that you get to make it up.
Hmm.
We get to make it up. We get to
Yeah.
pivot. We get to say no more of this, and I want to lean in here. And as we become more confident and more energized in who we are in our midlife, I think
Hmm.
that those doors open for us.
Yeah. I really believe that also. So let's get into you mentioned before we started talking about before we started recording about menopause mindset. So what does that look like when you say that? What does that mean?
Mm, yes. So, when you think about mindsets, right? Most of us know, based on the work of Carol Dweck, there's fixed mindsets and growth mindset. A
Hmm.
fixed mindset is when we think that's it, that's finite.
Hmm.
I'll never be good. I'm done. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm not smart enough. These are the corners that we get ourselves trapped in from a
Hmm.
young age, some of us. And I
Yeah.
think that it gets really pronounced in midlife
Yeah.
because all of a sudden we're not getting attention out there. We may feel invisible. A
Hmm.
lot of women, 1 in 5 women will leave their job or retire early or leave their job because they feel like they can't do their job anymore. So there's all
Hmm.
this, um, it's a heavy, heavy time
Yeah.
if we get stuck in the fixed mindset. So a couple
Yeah.
of fixed mindsets can be, this is the way it is. It's just a
Hmm.
part of getting older, right? The
Hmm.
weight, the
Hmm.
weight's coming on. I'm getting weaker. I feel
Hmm.
more frail. I'm not as sharp as I used to be.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not able to, get up and go like I used to. I don't feel like myself.
Yeah.
All these things that we're saying in our heads that can
Hmm.
really, really shut us down. And those are
Yeah.
fixed mindsets, as well as when we start to carry the baggage of the old mythology, if you will, of menopause, right?
Hmm.
It was like, um, they used to call women crazy, right? This was
Hmm.
the crazy time, the crone with the big nose and the gray
Yeah.
hair, the
Yeah.
crazy woman.
Yeah.
This is some of the stuff that we're carrying forward.
Right.
And no more. I say no
Yeah.
freaking more.
Yeah.
So a growth mindset is when you open the doors to possibilities.
Hmm.
I haven't tried everything yet. I haven't asked all the questions.
Right.
I'm going to go demand answers from my, OBG, or I am going to find new ones that are trained in menopause support.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
my body will respond. It's not, it is listening to me. Like
Hmm.
all of these things that we can say to ourselves. Um, I'm ready for more. I'm going to be more curious. I'm going to look under every rock. I
Yeah.
want to ask questions of my friends. And this is the way that we start to um, open up our perspective And when we do that, the answers are there,
Yeah.
especially now more than ever. I mean, I had to go searching years ago, and this isn't that long ago. I mean, we're
No.
talking 6, 8 years ago, searching for answers.
Hmm.
And now, thankfully, we have books about the brain on menopause and about
Hmm.
nutrition on menopause and so many different things that we can be doing.
Yeah, there is so much information out there now. I thank my lucky stars every day that I am going through this phase of my life in this time and not in generations past because there was so little information and was so hard to access. And even in this time, this day and age, I've had some pretty negative experiences with healthcare providers, pretty much dismissing me and my symptoms and not giving me anything, anything to try to help what I was going through. And, you know, I think women out there may have that experience. If that's you, if you're listening and you've had that experience, you just let that go and you go to the next provider and you do not stop
That's
because
right.
there are people out there who will listen to you and take you seriously and help you.
Yes.
Women have been dismissed, and like you said, especially in this phase of life, for way too long. And it is time for us to stand up and say, we will not be dismissed anymore.
I love that. There's a Chinese proverb, and I love the story. I found a card a few years ago. It was a birthday card one of my daughters had given me, like
Mm,
years and years ago. I don't even remember the
yeah.
card then,
Yeah.
but this woman, this card had a simple quote on the front. It was a Chinese proverb that said, "When sleeping women wake,
Mm,
mountains move."
mm,
And that propelled me forward. When
yeah.
sleeping women wake, mountains move. They say by 2030, there are going to be 1 billion women in somewhere on the menopause continuum,
Mm,
peri-menopause, postmenopausal women, 1 billion of us. If
yeah.
we all had that, or even a small percentage of us had the
Yeah.
growth mindset that we are not done, that we're going to educate ourselves and advocate for ourselves. And that's really important still right now. We
Hmm.
have to advocate with
Yeah.
our physicians, with anybody.
Yeah.
We have to advocate for ourselves until the world has come on board with,
Hmm.
what's happening
Yeah.
at this age and for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have to educate and advocate. So I recently wrote a blog post. This growth mindset versus fixed mindset is making me think of this blog post I just wrote on the negativity bias. And it's kind of reminding me of that when you're talking about this. It's this idea that our mind kind of immediately wants to protect us. And so we will prevent ourselves from entering that growth mindset or doing things that require a growth mindset because we immediately think, I'm not good at that. That's not meant for me. I'm too old. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. These are kind of all excuses that pop up in our minds when we think about doing something that maybe we feel called to do. And it's a way of our brains trying to protect us. But how do you help women, or what would you recommend for women to kind of get past that, to be able to recognize, oh, this is my negativity bias talking. This is that old lizard brain that is trying to keep me alive, and there's actually no danger here, and I can push past this.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great question. And it really comes down to awareness and awareness of
Mhm.
thoughts. So
Mhm.
we can notice, in fact, I just had this conversation with a client of mine. We can notice which wolf we're feeding, right? They talk about the two wolves, that one is on one shoulder, one's not talking to us on the other shoulder. Well, which wolf are we feeding? And when we can become aware of those negative thoughts, of the fixed mindset, of the self doubt, of the self loathing, when we become aware of it, we can turn our head literally and start to feed the other
Mhm.
wolf, the
Yeah.
growth mindset wolf. I'm not done yet. I
Mhm.
haven't tried everything. I haven't turned over every rock. I
Yeah.
I am gritty. I am resilient. I'm willing to fight for myself. And so, what's really a great tool, and I just call it not helpful, the not helpful tool.
Yeah.
And that is when you feel that sense of being invisible, not being enough,
Mhm.
feeling like you've aged out, like you're irrelevant.
Yeah.
Just quietly say to yourself, not helpful.
Yeah.
This is not helpful for me.
Yeah.
And we can start to interrupt those patterns, those mental patterns, and we actually weaken them. Like when we, pull the weed, we want to get to the root, but sometimes we got to pull a lot to get down to the root. So we want to continue to interrupt the
Hmm.
negative bias, the all of the negative thinking, the self-doubt. And it can be as easy as this isn't helpful for who
Yeah.
I want to be.
Yeah. And that idea of continuing to fight, when you said that, listeners will know my daughter has a lot of chronic health issues, and my mindset with helping her was always because they were things that people were not figuring out, lots of different doctors and specialists, and we were not getting any answers. And my mindset was, I will not stop, right? Like I'm like a dog with a bone. I will not stop until I get the answers that I need, that we need. And I think we need to fight for ourselves the way we would fight for our children. I'm not alone. I know any other mother out there who has had a child who was struggling and needed help would have the same exact mindset. I don't care if I see some lousy doctor who's not paying attention to us and, what we're really needing. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to find another one, and I'm going to try a new therapy, and I'm going to, do whatever I need to do in order to make this happen. But we need to turn that ferociousness that we have, that mama bear, ferocious attitude on ourselves and say, no, no one's going to dismiss me. No one's going to tell me that I'm not worthy or I'm invisible or I'm all done. I am not. And I will not stop
I love
until,
it.
right? I will not stop. You will be so sick of me because I will not give in to other people's opinions about what this stage of life is about.
That's right. And that is when sleeping women wake, mountains move.
Yeah.
Right? When moms need to get the job done, they get the job done
Yeah.
every single time for their kids. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It's just to turn it to us and recognize this is not selfish.
No.
This
My
is
gosh.
not selfish. You are not self-centered. You are not
Yeah.
taking too much time for yourself or spending too much money on yourself. This
Hmm.
is Dr. Christiane Northrup. She wrote The Wisdom of Menopause, like one of the first MDs to really talk about this. Her book is thick, it's huge, a massive piece of work. And she said that going through this phase of life is like putting a new hard drive into a computer. Like literally,
Mm.
you have a new hard drive. Your body is working with new mechanics,
Hmm.
new electrical system, new chemistry system, and
Yeah.
it takes a bit for it to understand the new hard drive.
Yeah.
And what I'll often say to women is that this is like training for the Super Bowl. Like we are in the Super Bowl, right? Think
Yeah.
about how much airtime that Super Bowl gets, right? And if we recognize that right now in our 40s, 50s, 60s, we are in training for the game. We are in the game of our lives, and we
Hmm.
need to be at our top everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And you're right. I love the idea of the new hard drive. That's a fantastic way to think about it. And it's so true because I can't tell you how many times I've said to my family, like, I don't even recognize myself anymore. I don't know who I am. I don't know whose body this is. I don't know whose mind this is. I don't know who's like just the fluctuations in mood, which I was never a type. I just was never a person who had major fluctuations in my mood. All of a sudden the moods are all over the place, and it really is this time of like, wow, so much is changing, and it's going to take some time for me to get to know this new body, this new mind, this new everything, and to give ourselves the permission to take that time and to be gentle with ourselves in understanding what this new person needs, right? Because our needs are different now. And if we keep trying to hold on to what they were and living the life that we lived before, I think that's going to cause that resistance will cause a lot of suffering. instead of being much more open and receptive and saying, this is normal and natural, and these are the changes that are happening, and what do I need now in this phase of my life?
Mm, yes. And seeing that in your fellow sisters out there. I
Hmm.
think that when we can start to open our hearts to each other and not be not judge other women so harshly, like
Yeah,
recognize we're all going through this. There
yeah,
are very, very few women who have no symptoms.
yeah.
Like we're all dealing with changing body composition, changing
Hmm.
energy, mood, sleep. We are.
Yeah,
And so when we can look at each other and, you know, say, I see you, sister. Like, I see
yeah,
you. Even if it's in your mind and you're passing someone in the store, that and so much in my world of meditation and some of the training I've done, the ability to first, sometimes we have to find compassion for others in order to then find
yeah.
compassion for
Hmm.
ourselves,
Yeah.
to soften all around each other in this
Hmm.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You also recently wrote one of your sparks was on, let me look at this. I had written down what I wanted to say to you. It was on shame, oh, busyness. That's the one I wanted to talk about, busyness. So you talked about busyness and it was hysterical. You tell the short story that your daughter looks out the window. She's 4 years old. You're in Italy. She looks out the window. There's a man napping on the bench and she's like, he's dead, because she was so unfamiliar with the concept of a mid-afternoon nap. That was so foreign to her, living in this busy world we live in. And I have an episode coming out this week on what is success? What does it mean to be successful? Like, how do you define success at this stage of your life? And I think those two things really intertwine that this busyness that we have carried for so much of our lives somehow equates to success in our minds. And that we may need a new definition now of what success looks like. So, to you, if I were to ask you, what does it mean to be successful now in your life? How would you answer that?
Mm. Well, first I'll say I didn't feel like a very successful mom when my 4-year-old thought that somebody napping in the afternoon was
Yeah.
dead. I was like, oh boy,
Yeah.
what am I modeling, right?
Right. I literally LOL'd. It's so funny. Like, I get that again.
Yeah, it's very interesting at 60. I turned 60, I guess last year around this time. And there was something really empowering about it. I let my hair go silver.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
love it, by the way. It looks
thank
amazing.
you. So done with the chair, every
Yes,
5 weeks.
yes. Yep.
And um, my my definition of success is really changing. I
Hmm.
used to be very hyper focused on acknowledgement, outer acknowledgement,
Hmm.
right? The likes, the followers, the book sales, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I exhausted myself.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew it was happening, but I didn't know how to not let it happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like this new stage of my life, I'm really understanding how that really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a new relationship with myself. And I started these sparks on January 1,
Hmm.
2025, because I needed a place for me to express myself creatively without caring
Hmm.
without selling anything, without
Yeah.
asking for anything, it's my art form, right? Just to
Yeah.
communicate what the stories I have and the things I've gone
Yeah.
through in a very clean way. Because
Yeah.
social media gets very
It
tangled.
does.
It's
Yeah.
entangled in our
Yeah.
emotions and our sense of
Hmm.
worth. And so that is really where what I'm moving away from. And to me, that feels like partial or a part of my new success and freedom. Really
Hmm.
freedom.
Hmm.
Success to me is freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Freedom from all
amazing.
that.
And I can tell you as a reader, you and I really only met one time. It was whatever, a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years ago at this point. I can feel that in your
Mm,
writing. I can feel this relaxed sense of this is my art form. I'm putting this out into the world and I hope that it helps somebody, but I'm really doing it for me. I'm doing it for me and I'm hoping that somebody else, benefits from what I'm doing. And it feels good. Like I look forward to them every day, come into my inbox, and like sometimes I have super busy days and I have to like pile them up and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read all of Cara Sparks. Um, and it feels good. It has a really good feeling to it. So, I mean, to me, that is a beautiful form of success if you're touching people in that way and they're feeling just the authenticity of what you're doing.
well, thank you. Thank you. And I think it's important to say they're not perfect. And even looking back
Mm,
to the beginning of January, I'm like, oh wow, like I've come far. My intention, and I'm saying this for a reason, it's not personal. It's really, I think as women, we want to be perfect from the
yeah.
beginning. But my
Hmm.
intention is to allow this unfolding to happen
Yeah.
and allow people to see it,
Yeah.
to allow them to maybe read a spark from back in January and say, oh, she's writing so much more, so differently now.
Yeah.
Let's let each other, again, coming back to when sleeping women wake, like,
Yeah.
let's help each other wake up and allow ourselves to be imperfect and show the world how we're evolving and growing because
Yeah.
it's only going to help one
Yeah,
another is to not
absolutely. Yes. Breaking that
try.
illusion that one
Exactly.
day you're, nobody knows your name, and the next day you're perfect at your craft. Letting
Exactly.
them see that there is all this messy middle in between where you are growing and changing and learning. And that's beautiful because whether you're reading a spark from today or the one that came out, the first one that came out in January, perfection doesn't change its ability to be impactful, right? If what you're writing comes from your heart, you're going to be impactful. And maybe, yes, maybe you've honed your craft and it reads a little differently now, and that's great. That's part of the evolution, but it doesn't mean that you can't be impactful even if you're not perfect. And that's part of, I think, that negativity bias and that, fixed mindset is this idea that it's too scary to start. It's too scary to start something that I want to do or to make a change in my life because I'm going to be a beginner. Who wants to be a beginner in their 50s and 60s, right? That sounds terrible at first. And so we don't start, but it is where the magic happens is in the starting, is in getting over that fear that you're not going to be perfect. And you're also not going to be, once we are in our 50s and 60s and we've done something for a long period of time, we're probably pretty good at it. We're probably considered experts, quote unquote. We feel confident in our knowledge and our ability. And now we're stepping into something where we're a complete beginner and we have to have that beginner's mindset.
Yeah. Yes. And what a great place to be. I mean,
Yeah.
not only does it keep our brain younger to be able
Hmm.
to learn new things, but it also slows down time.
Yeah.
So, as we get older, we have this feeling like time is speeding up.
Yes.
But when we do novel things, go
Yeah.
to new places, try out new stuff,
Hmm.
time actually slows down. I
Yeah.
mean, or not, our
Our
perception,
perception.
our
Yes. Yes.
perception of time slows down. So
Yeah.
that's one of the benefits of just trying new things. And then the other thing is, and this is one of my favorite sparks, is that you're not late. Like,
Hmm.
put it on a post-it note.
Right.
You're not late to your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And when we can stop comparing ourselves, and like I said, this was a major thorn in my side for a lot of my career was the comparison, the judgment, the
Hmm.
need for acknowledgement, all of that. But when we can stop that, we realize I am right on time. And that's
Yeah.
how I feel right now. It's really a wonderful place to be. And
Yeah.
you said something before we went live about our bodies and our minds being so interconnected,
Hmm.
and so there's no you know, it's not a surprise that going through perimenopause and menopause and on this continuum, where our psychology, our sense of self is going to suffer when
Hmm.
our body is going through these changes,
Yeah.
right? So, it's often said our biology drives our psychology. So
Hmm.
when we feel sluggish, when we feel tired, inflamed, all of that stuff,
Yeah.
our mindset, our mood is going to take a beating.
Yeah.
So again, there's that self-love, and then there's that great self-care.
Hmm.
Really, what I like to say, dial in your practices, dial in those habits. Like this is the time
Yeah.
to really, and it doesn't mean you have to be hyper disciplined or
Mhm.
eat 2 grams of carbs a day. It's like,
Yeah.
but dial it all in. And I know
Yeah.
for me, one of the biggies was alcohol.
Hmm.
Like, I'm Italian. I have a glass of wine every night. Well, no wonder my sleep was
Yeah.
really off. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a reckoning as well, is to really sit with how you're feeling. And I do this practice called the mindfulness of menopause. And it's
Mhm.
really 3 simple steps if I can share it.
Absolutely. I would love that.
The first step is to name everything you're feeling. Pull out your journal, top of a couple of pages, physical, mental, emotional, social,
Mhm.
spiritual, and then write it all down. Everything from my big toe hurts, you know,
Mhm.
write it down. And then the second step is to evaluate that. Evaluate, look at a couple of things, pick 3 of them. So maybe you picking, loss of sleep, hot flashes, and rage. I'm
Ooh,
just
the rage is
picking,
real.
the
Yeah.
rage is real,
The rage is
right?
real.
So pick 3. So we've got name it,
Hmm.
educate yourself, pick 3 and go down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Learn everything you can, or maybe it's just one.
Yeah.
Learn everything you can about why there's rage, what is causing the rage during this time.
Yeah.
And then the third is advocate. So we said this
Hmm.
before, right? Name,
Yeah.
educate, advocate. Then you go out there and you get your boxing gloves on and you
Yeah.
go demand answers.
Yeah.
And with that being said, you also start to put into place the things can help with, mood stabilization, with
Hmm.
better sleep for better mood, all of that. And you do those things.
Yeah.
Like we're in training for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So this isn't the time to go lax on our habits. This is the time to dial them in.
Yeah. And and I totally agree with you. I think, I hate the term mind body connection. I don't have a better, I mean, if you have a better term for that, I'd love to hear it. But it's, mind body, it's all one. We separate them, but one impacts the other. It's just very cyclical. So if we're saying, oh, have a growth mindset and, go out and try new things. And many women would be saying, I am exhausted. Like I am having trouble trying new things. I'm having trouble getting off the couch. Like everything hurts. I'm so tired. I still have to go to my job. Maybe I'm still raising children. So what are your top recommendations for women when it comes to starting to hone in on the things that will make the most impact for them physically during this phase of life?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Feel better first. Feel better
Hmm.
first. When you feel better,
Yeah.
your everything changes,
Yeah.
right? So, what is one thing you can do? One thing that you can do
Hmm.
today to start to feel better. It could be
Yeah.
a walk, it could be a nap, it could be, eating lighter at dinner so you sleep better, or no
Hmm.
wine tonight. One thing to feel better first,
Yeah.
because it's like, it's the dominoes, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It starts to happen. And when we start to connect a couple of feel good days where you've done
Yeah.
things and you're just feeling a little less achy or a little less moody, it feeds on the next and the next and the next. And that's how we develop the discipline of building sustainable lifestyle change.
Changes. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I I'm curious about your clients if they have been so busy in their lives that when you say, do something that helps you to feel better, if they're like, I don't even know what that is at this phase of my life.
You know, when you get down to it, we know. We
Yeah,
already know.
I believe that.
And when I ask them, so we'll chat and chat and chat, and it will just boil it down to the simplest action.
Hmm.
Tonight after work, I'm gonna put my walking clothes on or my running clothes, and I'm just gonna get outside, for
Yeah.
20 minutes before dinner, after dinner, whatever. Sometimes we always know.
Hmm.
And so we try to make it the most doable thing so that we feel successful. And Katie, it's hard. I've been in this work for so long, and I could see, there's so much content out there. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Right? Like
yes,
everyone's
yes.
saying the same
Overwhelming.
thing, but oftentimes that same thing that's being said is actually the simple answers. But
Hmm.
because it's being said so many times and it's so
Yeah.
in our face, we our eyes gloss over and we
Hmm.
stop believing.
Yeah.
And I like to say, I often would tell my yoga students, like, don't be fooled by the simplicity. Like, because we're always talking about breath in yoga,
Hmm.
but it is the breath. Like it's all
Yeah.
it is the breath.
Yeah.
And like we could say that about it is movement and it
Yeah.
is sleep and it
Yeah.
is nutrition and
Yeah.
it is stress reduction. Like it is these things, no matter
Yeah.
how many times you've seen it on TikTok.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yes.
Like so maybe
Yes.
like turn it all off and just start to
Yeah.
listen to yourself and what is the
Yeah.
one thing I can do? Not what the 20-year-old influencer said, but what
Right.
is the one thing I can do today to feel better first?
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I think we know, but we resist our own knowing. We've really outsourced our knowing for so long. And that's another, I think, really beautiful like part of this phase of life is this coming home to self and trusting what we know, trusting that we know what we know.
Yes.
And we can move from that. We don't need permission from anyone else. We can just decide to do it because we intuitively know that that is what's right. And a lot of times I think that not trusting ourselves is the thing that gets in the way of us, our awareness that we already know, if that makes sense.
No doubt. No
Yeah.
doubt. Yes.
And it is overwhelming. I agree too, because they're like, make sure you sleep and make sure you do your breath work and make sure you exercise and don't forget your strength training and 100,000 grams of protein a day. And and I'm in this, like, this is, what I do. I do, I'm a yoga teacher as well. And all the breath and the nervous system regulation and the exercise, I do all the things. And even to me, I look around and I'm like, wow, because there's always something more. There's always something more you can add on to it. So giving yourself permission to go back to the basics and to do what feels good and to do what you intuitively are called to do, I think is great advice. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share today before we get off?
Well, I think the only last thing I'd like to say is I really believe in women.
Mm,
I really believe in us.
me too.
I believe in our strength and our resilience and our grit and our intuition,
Hmm.
which in many ways is just more skin level than it may be for men.
Hmm.
And when we can join together and really support each other, like really support each other,
Yeah.
not only in sharing our journeys,
Hmm.
wherever we're at, but in supporting the success of other women. This has
Hmm.
been really something very near and dear to my heart. I didn't have sisters. I have two
Hmm.
brothers. I always wanted a sister, but I had two daughters, and I've
Hmm.
taught my daughters to celebrate their friends, to
Hmm.
celebrate women that succeed, that are on top of their game, supposedly,
Hmm.
and to check ourselves, that bias, right? We have that judgmental bias in us, that comparative
Yeah.
bias that
Hmm.
will rip others down to make
Hmm.
ourselves feel better. And
Yeah.
I think that when women can mature beyond that and we can
Yeah.
just be in each other's camp, for
Yeah.
goodness sake, like let's get each other over the finish line.
Hmm.
Listen, those 1 billion women of us, when
Hmm.
we awaken, this world could literally change overnight.
Yeah, it really
And
could.
that's what drives my work.
Yeah. Amazing, Cara. Love it. Every word. Thank you so much for being here. I will put your Substack handle in the show notes so people can get your sparks every day like I do and get into your world. And I just thank you for your work.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I wanted to go through some of the takeaways to help you remember because we're in perimenopause and menopause. So, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Cara reminds us that it takes time to interrupt the patterns, the thought patterns that we maybe have lived with for a while. But if we're patient and if we continually redirect our thoughts towards a growth mindset, we can change, we can learn to live in a growth mindset. And there is so much fun and growth and excitement on the other side. Second takeaway, fight for yourself the way you would fight for your kids. You deserve it. So if you are not getting the answers that you're seeking, or you are feeling like you're fading away into the background of your life, you deserve to be seen and be heard and to step into your power in this phase of life. Remembering that Chinese proverb, when sleeping women wake, mountains move. And the last one is to use that mindfulness of menopause technique that Cara mentioned. Write down everything that you're going through, name it. Then start picking off of the list one at a time and go down a rabbit hole for each one, learning everything you can about why you're experiencing those symptoms. And then find someone who will listen to you. Advocate for yourself. Don't take no for an answer. Don't be brushed aside. You just keep fighting until you find someone who's willing to take your symptoms seriously and help you to start feeling better if you're really experiencing a lot of perimenopausal and menopausal symptoms. Because, like we mentioned on the show, the mind and the body are one. If one is impacted, the other one is impacted. So, to start feeling better physically may be the first step for you in stepping into your power and into the growth mindset and enjoying this phase of life. All right, everyone, as always, I want to hear your feedback. Instagram, you can DM me on Instagram at katie.farinas. You can email me at katie@katiefarinas.com. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can comment directly on the show. Have a wonderful week. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. I will talk to you next time. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self-discovery here at the Midlife Purpose Project. I hope today's conversation sparked something deep inside of you, made you laugh, or reminded you that you are never alone. Remember, it's never too late to reconnect with your soul's purpose and live a life of meaning. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the show, or share it with someone who could use a little inspiration. It really helps the show reach more women and helps me keep the content ad-free. Join me next time as we continue to explore what it means to live with purpose in midlife.